Hi everyone, Daddy here. This episode has two sections in it where we delve a little deeper into two sections of our campaign. As per usual, we have to advise that our episodes may contain spoilers for Frosthaven, but in this episode, we will be discussing in further detail our Winter Road event, which is number 7, as we found it to be an incredibly interesting event that warranted discussion. We also discuss Personal Quest number 6 during the Outpost phase. These will have timestamps in the show notes to assist with those wanting to avoid these particular spoilers. I will also add short messages before those sections, so you can skip ahead if you wish. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy episode 17. Welcome to episode 17 of our board game podcast, A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Eddie. I'm once again joined by that guy you all have to listen to alongside my amazing voice, the man who loves swapping his miniature every 10 minutes and trying very hard to keep track of his stance because he's a very special individual who just has to be different. Gaz! Say hi, Gaz.
Hi, Gaz. I can't wait until you get some puzzle of a character and you're sitting there pulling out your hair and trying to figure it all out, and we can give you
I want a slight scale up in difficulty and complexity. I don't want a puzzle. I don't want the Riddler or the Puzzler or Intrepid, the character. I don't want any of that.
I'm pretty sure on the back of the Drifter, doesn't the complexity just say NA? Like, in, there is no complexity is not applicable to this character.
There's actually a little button no one's actually found, but there's a button on the cardboard. You press it and it auto plays the character for you.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I've been doing that.
I thought so.
This week on Amdirt, we're gonna go into scenario 18, which is the Crystal Fields. So we're further investigating the whole ice speaker kind of territory, and there's all these densely packed ice spikes, and all that kind of gets thicker as we kind of go in, get closer to our goal, really. We're going to have a bit of a chat about that particular scenario, and then we're going to have our, I guess, outpost phase again, and this is our second one.
Yeah, we're like 2 weeks into winter now.
We are. We definitely are.
It's getting scary and cold. I'm cold.
Yeah, well, we're also heading into winter here.
Yeah,
so
that's it.
There you go.
Yeah, I know. That's it. We're going to have to make sure that this winter in Frosthaven goes for 3 or 4 months so that we can, breach the cold and head into spring and summer.
Yeah, and not get attacked. So next weekend from May 19th, actually, we're actually holding our yearly Game Mania. It's an event that I host where we actually take an Airbnb and we go and rent a house somewhere, and we go as a big group of friends, and we have a long weekend essentially. It's about 3 nights worth, and we bring a whole bunch of board games and some booze, and we just sit back and nerd it up for the whole weekend. And we do this once a year. It gives everyone a chance to sort of unload and get away from home a little bit and have a bit of a holiday. So that will be occurring next weekend. And we call it Game Mania. It's actually Game Mania 5. So we've done this 5 years now in a row. Oh, no, not in a row. Sorry, we missed one. Yeah, COVID. We got locked down. Most locked down city in the world. And we are very much looking forward to that. So that can change. What is that changing? Oh, no, we're going to do a potential special episode there.
Yeah, but we won't be playing on the Monday, so...
No, we're going to probably have a different episode then, but we're also going to have probably a mini episode of some kind of our fun while we're at Game Mania, about some of the games that we're actually playing, and some favorites, and just how the whole weekend's going. It's just going to be a lot of fun, and we're all very much looking forward to it.
But yeah, we'll release that as a bonus episode so people have the options to not listen to our random, tired, caffeine-fueled rambles about other games. So you have the option of not listening.
Yeah.
But I encourage you to listen because if anything, it'll be a shambles and at least be funny.
Look, it really depends on when we record it. Because if we record
Yeah.
it when we're fresh, it's good. But we like to stay up fairly late because we've got the whole house to ourselves and it's a weekend, right? It's a holiday. So we end up, look, some of us 7 a.m. cockroach poker kind of stuff.
It's
won't do
all
it
about
then.
accumulating like sleep debt, right? Like you get no sleep on the first night, you get less sleep on the next night, and so by the end of the weekend, you know, out of your amount of sleep you should have had, you've had very, very little. So
Yes. And there's actually going to be 9 of us. So 9 of us staying in the same house. I've got a bunch of games that I'm looking forward to bringing in and playing. We don't want any of the massive epic ones, but if you've got a suggestion for me, hit me up and let me know if there's something you think I should be taking that can accommodate 9 people. I might have it. I might get it. I got this week to go.
we could just run 2 concurrent games of Intrepid.
Oh, anyway, as we're gonna have like Gaz said, we're gonna have another episode because we're not gonna be able to play next week. We're gonna have to organize also a little chat with our Deathwalker. We've mentioned Phil a lot on this podcast. He's a lovely friend of ours, and we definitely poke the bear a little bit too much on this, and he has to sit there and listen to it every single time. He loves listening to the episodes, and he never gets to defend himself. So we're going to have a little chat with the Deathwalker, and because Gaz and I don't fully understand, we sort of see crazy damage and a lot of not yet. We're going to have a little bit more of a deep dive into kind of the play style and Phil's opinion on the Deathwalker, which will be really interesting. And I know a few people have actually mentioned to me they're looking forward to hearing about the Deathwalker, and they wish they could have heard maybe Calvin talk about the Bone Shaper. But yeah, that'll be coming up as well.
Then I don't really jump on the socials in regards to like Reddit and stuff like that, but I think you've mentioned that of the classes or the starter classes, that the Deathwalker is probably one of the more popular of those classes. Is that right?
It's something I haven't looked at a poll, but that could be the most complex because it just seems to have the most discussion around it, around cards, around threads. I don't know if it's because I don't know how this works, but also it seems like a cool one that a lot of people, most groups will have one, and I think the Bone Shape is in a similar spot.
Everyone has that edgy person in their group that sees the word death and says that's me, right? And so that's why Phil must be that edgy guy in our group.
He is the edgy guy. He's the Death Slayer XXX guy.
Yeah, so look, hopefully then having a chat about that will be interesting for some people. I know there'd obviously be a lot of people playing that. But yeah, it will be cool to have a chat with Phil and just get his view on the games, how it all works and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, So we're going to do things a little bit different today because on our scenario that we did, scenario 18, we actually did a road event. Now, post-production Daddy's going to jump in here at some stage to give everyone a rough idea of how long this segment's going to last. It shouldn't last too long, but when it's safe to come back. We're basically going to be discussing a particular road event we got in a little bit more detail than the vague mess that we normally do because it kind of deserves its own little segment. Post-production Daddy here. Please skip forward 11 minutes if you don't want to hear the road event. So, we had a road event this time, and I might actually let you talk about this amazing road event that I think is such a cool introduction to the game.
Yeah, well, I completely forgot what it was, but then I was reminded that it basically impacted the entire scenario, not just at the start, but through the whole thing, and provided us with many laughs. It was really cool, and I'm so glad that we picked the way we went because it made such a difference. So we ran into, I think we're leaving Frosthaven, and some kid runs up to us named Ormy. Yeah. I think I got his name wrong every time I said it. I think it was
he kept saying Obby or something like that.
Obby, you know, Mormy, like just Dave, stuff like that. And anyway, he runs up and he's like, "Hey, adventurers, like I want to join you." And we're like, "Oh, okay, here we go." And the options were basically like, "Yeah, sure, grab your brand new sword that looks like it's still in the wrapper and come with us," or maybe next time.
Yeah.
And we were kind of talking about it at the time. It's just like, well, how bad could it be? Like it'd probably just be like, oh, you lose cards, or I don't know, you have to do something. And I was like, oh, what if it's like a summon that like we have to take with us?
Yeah,
or
like an
something
ally.
Like that? Yeah, yeah. And
I heard that and I
anyway,
dismissed it, and I was just like, oh, no, I wouldn't be. It'll be something like, oh, you take him down the road, he trips over, you now have to give him your pot or something like that to fix it, or something negative.
yeah,
That's
or like you're leaving Frosthaven and then his mum comes out and chases you and whacks you or something like that. And you have to pay her
yes.
10 gold. Yeah, like something like that, right? Something that was resolved instantly. But it wasn't. And as soon as we read the card, it was like, all right, Obby comes along with you. Orby. That's, I feel like I'm
Ormy.
going to get it
So
wrong.
like
Or
Norman, like
Ormy.
Normie.
Like Normie? Like a Normie. Oh, okay, maybe
Normie,
that's
but
it.
Ormy.
Normie. So Ormy comes along with you, and then it started telling us how he's going to behave in the scenario, and we're like,
Yeah.
okay, hang on a second. And I believe the end of it was like, if he dies, then just bad luck. Discard this card, right? If he doesn't, then you shuffle a new card into the future road event deck. Is that right?
Yeah, so it was like that, but it actually, if we lost him, we actually lose one morale.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. And morale has been something that's really hard for us to find because we were sitting for a long time on the threshold, I think, of like where we were going down. And this is when we were in summer. We didn't really know what it was going to do, but next to it's got like +0 or +5 or whatever. So we're kind of like, it's obviously going to impact something. We should probably keep it above that threshold. And it's been really, really hard to kind of do. But anyway, we saw that one like, oh, okay, we can lose one morale, I guess, but let's not let this guy die. And then we jumped into the scenario.
Yeah, we actually started the scenario, and look, we've been talking about how we're only playing with 3 people. We suddenly had a 4th, a plucky little squire that was, keen to see what seasoned veteran, adventurers, we're going to show them the ropes.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and
it was amazing.
yeah, and for those that haven't had this event but are still happy to listen to it and hear about it, the way that it works once you get in is he starts next to someone and he acts at initiative 50 and just does a move to attack 2. Right, so that's it. He's got, I think he ended up with about 11 HP or 10 HP based on our level. Yeah, so an okay amount. But the thing is, unlike other, we could discard cards, couldn't we?
Yes.
We could discard cards. Yeah,
we can discard cards to prevent damage.
Yeah, we could prevent damage on him. So we had a way like that we could make sure he didn't die. But the problem is, unlike, he just was just going to barrel on.
Yeah.
Right. So. And the problem with our party is that, as most of you regular listeners would know, turn 1, 66% of the party, because there's 3 of us now, do nothing on turn 1. All right. This is why I'm forced to turn 1 always go for a big play that distracts everything and tries to, have an impact, because I've got old mate Drifter over there trying to find his sword, his shield. Well, hang on, I know I put something in here. And then I don't know what the Deathwalker's doing, but he takes about 3 seconds to pick his cards. And he's like, done. And we're like, we haven't even sorted out battle goals yet. He's like, yeah, but I'm done. Well, okay, Phil. Right.
Yeah. But then 300 times the length for the second round. So
yeah, correct. Yeah, then we're all like, okay, let's go. And he's like, whoa, let's slow down a minute here. And like, okay, I'm like, all right, there needs to be some balance. But so we had Ormy, right? He's just like, I don't do prep.
No,
I'm that's it. I'm going. Watch this, guys. Let me show you a cool trick. And so I had to get ahead and try to make sure that I was going to be the focus.
Yeah.
And what made it even more interesting was the start of the scenario had a whole bunch of traps.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, the way that the traps were positioned as well was a way that he would run through them. So he would walk around them normally, but they were in ways, so that was the only space through.
I think there was a difficult terrain next to it.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, we thought it was, but yeah. So yes, that was really, really interesting.
And this is what like the scenario was fun because we had little moments where Ormy, the first thing he did was crit, right? And I copped an audio recording of it. He was hitting for 2 because he only hits for 2. The mobs in here had shield, so he was hitting for 2, pulls his crit, and we started laughing about the whole thing. And like, yeah, you did it, buddy, you did it. He's like, oh, this is easy. Like, we got this. It just added so much flavor to the dungeon because we only know this scenario with him.
Yeah.
You know, and without it, it would be different.
Yeah. And I remember we made the comment, it was maybe like 3 turns in, I reckon, thereabouts, 3 or 4 turns in, because we had to clear that first corridor. And we'll go through a better overview of the scenario later, but we just wanted to kind of condense the
We want to
talk
do the
here.
Ormy bit, yeah.
Yeah, then kind of back. But it was like 2 or 3 turns in, 4 turns in, and we're like, oh wait, remember that this guy isn't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're trying to balance this scenario, and this one had these mobs, the lurker things that jump out and jump all the way across. So we were constantly worried they were going to just like leap over all of us and go just book him. And we're like, oh, this is so hard. And we're like, you're not even supposed to be here.
Yeah. Because like the map, if you've done the scenario, there's a little tile, it says A, and there's no rules around it in that first thing. So we were just like, by the time we clear this room, the first room, and get to the door and open it, there may be a rule that deals with this tile. And Ormy was working at the same pace where he got to the part where he was right next to that letter as we were going to open the door. And I even said, I might stay back with Ormy and look after him. Like normally we wouldn't think about it, but I would stay back after him, and it paid off because we got ambushed by more of the Beybladers, and we had to go in there and fight. And he was fighting. And next minute, these things are bleeding him. I got to heal him. I got to keep him up. And he's showing no fear. He was just going in and just hitting.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we didn't have a scenario that had mobs with retaliate.
Well, that was going to be the last thing I was going to say. There was someone that said that they got this on Raven's Roost. I can't remember the number of the scenario. It's the one with the giant tree and the heroists. Okay. And they just said that when I was doing a search for other Ormy experiences, he just ran off and necked himself basically because, you know, and that's tough. Imagine him in the Frost Prince scenario. Frost Prince scenario. Imagine him. Get this. Imagine him on the ones where you're running away from the hounds and you need to escape. Yeah. Does he not break that scenario? Because as long as there's a mob on there, he turns around and starts heading back towards the entrance to deal with the wolves, right?
Yeah, well, he just would turn around and say, "You go on ahead. I've got this." Yeah, and then he'll just start getting swarmed by the wolves. Yeah.
So it's so cool that everyone who ever experiences this will probably experience this on a different scenario. And
yeah, it is, and it makes this road event, and we don't know the outcome of like what happens because we passed it, so we managed to keep him alive the whole time. But we don't know what happens with the follow-up one that gets put in there.
Yeah,
but everyone's going to have a different version of whether this is a good or hard scenario versus other people. Because you could get it on the first or second mission, or you could be getting it on
it's a winter road event. So
it's a winter one specifically. Okay, okay.
So I was
going to be a little bit in.
I was just thinking about that. He walks into the room with the snowflake and the ice fist dude, and he just gets in between them. Like he just gets one shot.
Dear. It's it was really cool. I'll call it out and say that's by far my favorite road event.
That's why we wanted to talk about it. We just wanted to go into it. For anyone who's had it, I'd love to hear from them. Have you had an Ormy yet? If you're still here, and if not, let us know the scenario you got it on and how it affected it, and if he survives or not. Because we actually got him on a fairly, what I would say, easy one, right? Not to spoil the end of this one, but he survived. It was fine.
Yeah, we did find this one quite easy, and I think the extra level of difficulty in the first couple of rooms was purely because we were so focused on making sure that Ormy didn't die. Yeah, right. He became like this mini secondary objective. So, and like the last thing just to say on that is that even if you haven't done this road event and you got Ormy coming up, and you get you probably don't know what scenario you're going to, right?
No.
Because most of the time, unless you're repeating something, you're just like, well, I'm just going to go there and we'll find out. So I think this is going to add an extra level of tension. You're like, oh, this is that Ormy one. And oh, no, we're going to...
We picked a boss level or something. Yeah.
Because you can't just be like, hang on, Ormy, just wait a minute.
You can't save him, no. So scenario 18, we started off with Undead Yeti land again. So it's refreshing to see these big boys again. And that first tile, we had a lot of traps. Difficult terrain. We had a scenario goal, and it's becoming a mainstay at the moment. All enemies in it are dead, with no special rules. And yeah, I mean, not yet.
Not yet.
And then Gaz decided to one-shot a dude.
I had a really big first couple of turns.
You had an
right?
amazing first room.
Yeah. So first turn, moved up, hit a dude, pulled him through 2 traps, insta-killed him.
Yeah.
And these things have 12 life, I think. Something around that, 10, 12
Can't
life.
remember. Yeah, somewhere around there.
But yeah, so I managed to just insta-kill that. And meanwhile, this is my follow-up from, if anybody remembers last week, Deddy giving me crap about on turn 1, all you did was muddle, poison, disarm, like curse yourself, and then just stand there.
No, I put my hand up. This was your best first round ever. It went in, you removed the traps, which obviously made things easier for us, and you one-shot the dude that was there. It was just clean. But that wasn't even
so clean.
The best part, like, because you followed it up with your second round.
Yeah, the second round, I kind of looked and went like, okay, I reckon I can jump in here and just chuck my Retaliate on. And I've actually got a potion now that gives me Retaliate 1 at range 3. So it kind of stacks really well with my Retaliate card, which gives me Retaliate 3 at range. I think it's 2 or 3 or something like that. So I managed to jump in there, and I think I only took 1 damage from 3 things hitting me because they were hitting little.
They did little damage, yeah.
Yeah, and they missed. So I think one of them missed. One of them did a -1, and then the other one hit me, and I think I blocked one of it. So they all took like 4 damage each. And yeah, I was like, Phil was looking at the damage meters, like, oh wow, you were absolutely killing it after 2 turns.
Yeah.
So
no, after
it was
2 rounds,
very strong start.
Yeah, after 2 rounds, you had 26 damage. Which, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Especially for Geminate.
And it kept, well, hang on a second, just let's ease up. I think as well, it might have been turn 2 or 3, and one of you guys said, is this scenario just perfectly lined up for you? Because there was a monster that was going to eat the cold. I think there was the Yeti was going to eat the cold and hit Phil, and if they ate the cold, they were going to give him brittle. And he's like, I don't want to get brittle because he doesn't know how to get hit, right? So he always gets really worried when he gets status effects.
Yeah.
And they're like, can you do anything about? Because this is the table is like, because Deddy doesn't know what an element is. Phil only deals in dark, so everything else is my domain, right?
Is your problem?
And so they're like, oh, Gaz, there's an element out there, and they're going to use it. Can you fix it? Can you fix it? I'm like, I can't just do whatever I want, right? Like you guys. And okay, after saying that, I looked at my cards and went like, oh wait, hang on. I can use this sword I've got that eats cold to give me PS3.
The sword that you've never used.
No.
But you happen to have.
I randomly picked it up. Yeah, it just eats cold. So after that, I think I'd love to hear the audio of that, because after me going like, I can't just do whatever I want. I can't just eat cold. And then I have my turn. I'm like, wait, I tap this and eat the cold? It feels like, so you can just eat the cold. I'm like, look, in this one instance, yes, this element I could deal with, but normally I can't.
You are Mr. Fix It, right? We look at the monster sheet and we go, oh my God, they have elements up and they're going to do this. Gaz, can you fix this? I don't think you've let us down. I think you've always fixed it. Somehow
managed to eat something. So yeah. It's it went really well. It just kind of all lined up.
So in this room, there's actually an A that was printed on the board, and I paused for a moment. And I was like, oh, and we'd already done 2 rounds of combat or whatever, and I've kind of gone, oh, I think I messed up, and I put the A on there, and then everyone's like, oh, and they start talking amongst themselves. Gaz and Phil are like giving me grief over it. I'm quickly checking the book. I'm checking the app. I'm checking everything. There's nothing on this, absolutely nothing. So I was adamant that nothing was going to happen, and then it was going to, be something that might trigger later, which, it's really cool. You can actually kind of see a potential ambush or a spawn point or a pressure plate or something like that. And yeah, we opened that door to go into the second room, and we found more, what are they called? Burrowing blades? Burrowing blades.
Yeah.
2 elite burrowing blades in a very large room. And 2 more spawned at our A spot. Lol. So
that was good. That was a good one. Nice work.
So they spawned behind us, and what had me worried, interestingly, our first experiences with, is this our second experience with these monsters?
Yeah.
I think not having the first experience with them and how annoying they were in that one gave us a bit more of an idea of kind of how to handle them in here, because it didn't seem...
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, anyone who's fought these, we call them Beyblades because from the kids' toy thing that just flies backwards and forwards with blades and stuff like that.
And spins.
Yeah, that our experience the first time we had them was that was literally all they did. They just
Yeah.
jumped backwards, forwards in the rooms, wounding everything and hitting everything. And we had the Bone Shaper then, so he had summons out.
Oh
So
my
basically,
God.
they were hitting everyone. And so when these popped up, we were like, oh no, we've got two in front of us and two in behind us. If they get this Beyblade thing, they're just gonna zoom in and out. But we spent most of the game being terrified of that card, or I think they've got a couple that they can do it with.
Yeah.
And they really didn't draw it that much. So I think we just must have got unlucky the first time we played against them, but it definitely made us super cautious this time.
Because they also target, like a lot of those ones, they pick the furthest person within range, and then they pretty much. So if you all split up a little bit and move around, you don't chill on a corridor. Because all the ones that spawned in that big room were too far away to even come to us, so they had to make their way to us before they could start Beyblading. By that stage, we'd already dispatched the normals that had spawned behind because we had predicted something would happen there. So it was kind of perfect. The other good thing about these, we only had these things. They all had 7 health and 3 shield and 2 shield. And Drifter Boy doesn't care about shield. So they were really quite easy to deal with. They weren't really posing too much of an issue.
Yeah. We also have access to a decent amount of pure damage. Like Phil has the ability to, on his Deathwalker, to move a shadow and then just deal damage. I've got a couple of things now that I think I got a new card that I used a couple of times actually, which is everything within range 2 or 3, or 2 things within range 2 or 3 just takes 2 damage and I can heal. So we had a few ways of you can pierce your way through, which I think there was a couple of times you just one-shot them or pretty close. And then we had other times where we just pure damage them through. So yeah, we managed to push through the shields quite well.
Yeah, they only have that one card, the spicy card. I think it's like hit for 6, like the elites hit for 6 and the normals hit for 4. And that's the only one that kind of had me a little bit like, oh, just be careful with like that part.
Yeah, well, especially, and we'll talk about the end of the scenario, but later on, that was probably the one we were dreading more than the Beyblade one, because I think they're flying like ninja kick across the table card. It's not so much the damage; it's just that it wounds everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's only attack 1 or 2 depending on whether they're normal or elite, but everything gets wounded, and that's just that just ticks through. So.
Oh, definitely. So we got the second room, and.
It was huge.
It was so big. It felt weird actually because the room was
so big. There was
only
only 3 monsters in there, and it was like giant.
Yeah, there was a lot of there was the hazardous bits and the pylons and difficult terrain, and that was kind of it. It was a bit strange. And Phil had made a call like once we were starting to deal with this room that wasn't giving us too much of a headache. He was making a call about going and opening up the other door. There was one moment where he was telling us. We should probably quickly hurry up and move to the door. And then he went invisible and sat in the doorway. And it was just, I have an audio of us telling the fat, and then, I swore. And then you did the same thing. We can't technically we can move through it, but it was just kind of like he's giving us orders and then he was invisible sitting there eating a pizza.
Yeah, he's like, guys, we got to deal with this, and then we got to go open that door really quickly. We're like, okay. He's like, I'm going to move to and go invisible. It's like, go sit in the corner and do nothing.
Yeah.
So,
he did.
Yeah, well, he definitely did. Yeah.
He went over and opened it while we were still in that room because you were taking a long rest.
I got myself in a really, really crappy position where I had only one move card and. In my current form, and I had no way of shifting because there was no monsters to attack. So the only way I was like, I can either exhaust or I can long rest, right? And I mean, obviously that's an easy decision, but it just meant that I was not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, it's so funny. And I played 2 cards that were going to heal top, heal bottom, and I was just going to top us up, right? And this is one of those situations where you kind of think opening a door is fine, right? Opening a door. We can be really far away if there's creatures in there, but then you wonder, Frosthaven's thrown a couple of curvies at us where there's an objective in there or there's, something that's going to keep spawning, which we need to hurry up and deal with or something like that. So it kind of, I wasn't getting the impression that it was going to be like that based on the current setup of the scenario. There was nothing about it that was screaming at me, hurry up. You just got to kill everything. So we took our time. So literally there was a whole tile. This giant middle tile, the second one, was in between us and Phil. And Phil went and opened the door. And then we got to see the third room. and Fortella.
Oh,
Actually, Fortella wasn't working. I had to do the voices. It was kind of
you did, and you did an amazing job. So if we didn't have Fortella and we weren't making a podcast, I would suggest that you record reading the cards and selling them.
Oh my god! So I had to read it, and basically there's an Algox guard in there who was fighting off more borrowing blades. Although I did hear there was a whole undead thing going on in there. Are borrowing blades meant to be undead? Are they bugs or undead?
No,
Or undead bugs?
no, I think it was. I don't know. That was really weird. There was supposed to be like corpses everywhere, and then he was there, but I'm not really sure. I think
Okay.
it didn't make a lot of sense.
We just don't pay a lot of attention sometimes.
No, we paid attention. That's the thing. The writing doesn't make sense. The writing didn't pay attention.
Okay. So this guy's in there, and it turns out he's an ally. Turns out he's an ally to us and an enemy to the enemies. And he is an elite Algox guard, which we've fought many of. 19 health, I think. And
Thereabouts.
fairly straightforward, chunky, 5 damage, roughly, that kind of stuff. And the ones that can do shield retaliate whenever they see you do it. And
Yeah, that's
yeah. And in there's 4 borrowing blades, 2 normal, 2 elite. And Phil's in the doorway, and the rest of us are miles off. And
So
then,
far.
yeah, we read the rules, and it's like, kill all things. And also, this guy is a friend. Something you have to keep alive. If he dies, you lose. And that was immediately the part where we kind of went, oh no, I think we effed up.
Yeah, like to paint the picture of how far away we were, right? From me and you before you had your turn, and what you did was amazing, and I want to talk about that in a bit more detail because I think it talks to how the game works and why that's so cool. But we were probably, I reckon, 20 squares. I reckon pretty close to I was away from the guard because I had to go through the room and then all the way down this long corridor. So I looked at that going, there is no way I'm ever getting there before
And you're
this
long
guy
resting.
dies. And I'm long resting. Yes, it's like, okay, on your turn, you can long rest. That's literally all you can do. So we were looking at that, and the best that Phil could do would be to finish his movement and draw the aggro of the 2 that were close. But then the other 2 were sitting there just wailing on this guy. And you mentioned earlier they have a 6 attack card
And bleed.
now, and bleed, right?
And wound.
Yeah, they have some nasty attacks, and all it took was because I think we were saying that you and Phil like, I'd be fine. I'm like, okay, if one of them has a 4 or 5 attack and draws a crit, that's basically him done.
Yeah.
Right? It only takes 1 crit on a big attack
Because he doesn't have shield.
No, we have no, and we couldn't. The rules weren't in that we could discard cards for him.
No.
So it wasn't like the other allies that you can have where you can just keep him alive.
Yeah.
So it really was. I was getting flashbacks of the priest that died.
Well, we mentioned the lose condition. You were like, everyone, look at the loss condition. We need to get in there. Phil, you need to go in there. But face tank, you need to get as much aggro as you can off everything that's in there. If you have to discard cards, whatever, you have to buy us time so that we can all get in there to help. Because the room itself wasn't overly hard. It was the positioning that was going to make it hard.
Yeah. But then one thing I didn't consider was that we had the Rocketeer over here who could just transform, okay, like some kind of, I don't know, bizarre transformers like, oh, it turns out my legs are rocket legs. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what the Drifter found in his bag?
Okay, well, I had already played had my 2 cards in my hand, and Phil went first to open the door. And then everything, we saw what it was. And I had no remorse. Drifters, I had no remorse, which I think is the top heal, and the bottom persistent card with the movement. And the other card was a bottom heal. I can't remember which one. I think it might be a 14. And the top retaliate shield. So that was my plan. I was going to top heal, bottom heal, top us up, me and Gaz, and then we were going to catch up eventually, right? And then meet up with Phil. And I saw what happened. I realized how far away we were. And I was like, well, I've already got my crushing weight on. I already got my continuous health up. We're putting the 3rd one on, and we're throwing on the movement one. So I threw that on, and the other card happened to be the one, the combo was the movement one, which is, wait, I'm starting to question it.
You didn't move that turn.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Because a part of me is like, they're both bottoms though. No, you're right. I didn't move that turn. I used the boots and I did the top, which was a nothing because the heels are on the opposite sides of both. And I kind of said, don't worry, just wait. I got this. And I pretty much did the on your marks, get set, and laid out, like got ready to sprint. And then the following round that came around, Phil was dealing with, that room and they were starting to wail into the guard. Mind you, the guard also has a turn, so he gets to hit them. He missed.
He drew like an attack 6 or something like that. Now, these things have 2 and 3 shields. So, but an attack 6, and we're like, oh, this guy's going to book one of these. He's going to at least clear one of them. And we're like, yeah, go big like guard guy. And he's like, oh, yeah, by the way, I missed. And
by the way,
come on.
By the way, I've heard about you guys. Am I doing it right?
Yeah, that's
pretty much.
Yeah, is this miss card good?
So I got around to my turn and I played No Remorse. The whichever card is the lost card that I never ever use, which is a movement 3, an attack on it, either 2 or 3, and then another movement afterwards. And because of the momentum card that I played, I ended up moving 5 and then moved another 4. And I immediately just, in one turn, moved 9 tiles. And it was phenomenal because I caught straight up. I landed right next to Phil and I whacked, I still had the top action on my other card, and I whacked the borrowing blade that was next to me. And it just threw me right in there. And I knew that the following round I'd have a 4 move plus the +2 from my persistent, and my jump boots were all good to go. So I could just land right next to the guard and help him out. And it was fine. We got this.
Yeah. No, you did an amazing job. I haven't seen anyone move that quickly since Calvin fed grass to his skeleton, and it just like zoomed through 3 rooms. Right, that was like, it was like you took a mushroom in Mario Kart and it was just like boost straight past us all. So it was very, very well timed.
Left Gaz right in the previous one, and no, it was fine. But yeah, we went in there, and after that, it was fairly straightforward of just clean up. Algok's guy didn't really take much after that, and it just came down to finishing these guys off. And Drifter's got good pierce, and just like we said earlier, we've got good ways of mitigating some of those shields. So yeah,
and I think in fairness and in balance, like I had a really good turn 2, 3, even 4 as we were clearing that first room into the second room. You and Phil had really good last 2 turns. So like your zoomy plus hitting, Phil threw shadows up and was moving some things around. That went from really bad to okay, this is fine in like a turn. So yeah, I think it was a good balance. It was a good balance.
Yeah. So we ended up finishing that, and I mean, I have to ask, how did that make you feel? How was that scenario?
I just constantly expected it to get harder. And the only reason that we almost lost, and this is a really weird kind of oxymoron, it was really straightforward. I quite liked it, from how it was set out. I liked the idea of the little ambush. We had to kind of fight there, and we were kind of surrounded. It was a cool way of doing that. But in the end, it felt like a little bit lackluster because it was just like, there's 4 dudes, just don't let this guy die. And honestly, if we had lost that because they just drawn really well, I don't know, I kind of would have felt a bit cheated. Being I know it was our fault and completely controllable that we opened the door early, right? Or we weren't all there when we opened it. But in saying that, the way that it was set out, the difficulty of that scenario ended up being that the guy could die really quickly.
Yeah, you're right. And we talked about this last week when we were talking about scenario 10, in that it's one that you could play multiple times and still find it extremely difficult. This one you can plan for. If we failed that and we had to do it again, oh my God, we would just prep outside the room. Okay, ready, set, freeze, everybody on the floor kind of situation.
Yeah, I guess the comparison is kind of like playing a game, say a video game, or watching a movie and knowing there's a jump scare coming up, right? When you know the jump scare is coming up, you do the thing and you know it's happening, and it might still be a little bit scary, but you know it's happening. Whereas that's kind of what this type of scenario is. It's like, get through the scenario, get to a point, get surprised by something that you have to figure out and deal with. But then the next time around, it's not a surprise anymore, so you prep.
Yeah.
Right. And we've had a couple of those where we've been like, oh, we know exactly what's happening when we open this door. This is really easy because we can plan around it.
Yeah.
Whereas you're right. With the last scenario, that would have continued to be difficult even on the next run through if we had to do it again.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the burrowing blades as a monster type? We've now met them twice. How do they sit in your area of monsters?
I think they're pretty cool. Like,
They're
they're
very
not.
unique, very unique.
Yeah, I think they are. They're really. I quite like them. I think they work best when there is other
The Bone
mobs
Shaper.
to take. Well, yeah, if there's a bone shaper and they can just stack their numbers and wounds. But if they have other mobs to kind of tank and they're more on the outskirts, because having three shields, you have to kind of dedicate either a decent amount of resources to them or a really specific set of cards.
Yeah, I'm just looking now. There's a card that we saw back with the first time we saw them, and it really, really booked Calvin. It's the one that focuses on the enemy furthest away. Move 5 if you're normal, 6 if you're elite, jump, curse and muddle everything, targeting all within range 2. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened last time, and Calvin ended up with like 500 curses in his deck. But we didn't see this one this time.
Yeah, we
So,
didn't. We
no.
didn't. So
And
yeah. So look, I think they're really cool. I think they're not. They don't have anything ridiculously annoying like we had with the priests, or with say some of the frost imp type stuff, or they don't really have anything that is super broken if they keep drawing it. Or I imagine if they bounce around a lot, that could get irritating. But yeah, I think they're pretty cool.
they're also, I wish that I like the mechanic. I really like the fact that they jump across and, in my head, they're spinning, which is why they're hitting everything, which is why we call them Beyblades.
Yeah.
But I wish it was just a bit clearer with where they're going. And sometimes it's kind of hard. I don't think we struggle with it as a group. I think I struggle with it individually to work out, because you can choose in a way when they have equal distance of where they're going to go. You can kind of choose which direction that's going to lead them to the furthest one, and you can kind of play it into your advantage that way.
Yeah, there were a couple of times I think where we needed to slow down and read the card properly to actually go, okay, this is the part first. It focuses first, right? And then it moves, and then it hits everything that it moves into a square or adjacent to a square. So it's not it picks the thing closest within the range of its jump, which is different.
Yeah.
And that's yeah.
I think you're right. It just adds that extra little bit of confusion because it's not traditional.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it's
targets.
easy with stuff like that because you kind of shortcut it in your brain. You go, oh, okay, yeah, well, it's picking this person that's really far away and it's just jumping over there. But that's how it works most of the time. But it came up towards the end where it's like, oh, wait, no, hang on. It's focusing this person, but it can't reach it, but it's going to try to. And then it's going to hit everything it can on the way. So, yeah.
Do you enjoy the whole process? I mean, Geminites already have a lot to think about, but do you now enjoy adding traps into your rotation to, manipulate to your list of things that you have to sort of do?
Traps? What do you mean?
Well, there's traps on the ground. Like, it's giving you an extra thing to think about. You already have that many things to think about. And now when there's a trap there and an enemy near it, does this...
Yeah, well, I've got pushes and pulls
I know.
that I never get to use because there's never any traps.
Okay, so it actually makes it maybe a bit easier, your decision process.
Yeah, well, it's like it allows the niche abilities I've got on some of my cards to actually be useful, which is cool. So, yeah, no, I don't mind. I've got enough jumps. I can get past them.
Yeah, see, I feel like drifters should be able to push and pull. Although I've got a push card and that I can add to my modifier. It's a perk, so there's a chance I can push something, maybe.
But no, traps good. I like the scenarios to have more things like traps and difficult terrain and hazardous terrain. I much prefer that than just obstacles. Right?
Yeah.
Because it gives you more decisions.
Yeah.
Right? Because you go, whoa, I can move through there. I just have to take damage.
But I want more monsters to have pulling abilities too.
Pulling, yeah, I know, but you say that and then they do it, and then you're like, oh, now I don't get to do what I do because I'm out of position.
And pull through 5 traps. And now I'm dead.
Well, that part too. So,
do you have any final thoughts on scenario 18?
The only thing, and I think we talked about this last week, but the same thing rings true, is we've gone back to do the, in quote unquote, main storyline, right? Yeah. So the storyline we set off, and now we have come back to Frosthaven. We met with a bunch of people, and now we've got to wait a while for there to be the next component of this. I definitely think the difficulty level is toned back from some of the side missions we were doing.
I think that you're right. I actually think it could be because of the fact that we've gone to a spread and tried all these different things and met all these different monsters. Because in a way, if we were to stick to the main ones, and not to do even the random side scenarios that a lot of people will get different ones anyway because they're randomized, we will see different, like have these different experiences. Like I said, this technically, if we were doing things like the original way, we would come across these burrowing blades first here, and it might change our opinion because we wouldn't know how they operate or how to handle them.
Yeah,
which will increase the difficulty potentially.
yeah, yeah. That's true. And I guess along with difficulty as well, there's the other constant conversation, which is complexity. Because I found both the most recent scenario, which was killer monsters, but with the pillars, and I think I spoke a little bit about how I thought that was really cool. It's a really good way of making killer monsters interesting. And this kind of was killer monsters as well, but then save a dude at the end, right? Compared to so many of the other scenarios we've done, which had like all these different levers and moving parts and things that we needed to accomplish. Again, I feel like, yeah, maybe we've kind of made the road a bit rougher for ourselves by kind of going by the tappers approach. Right, we've kind of gone into the scenario and we picked random things to do. Whereas I guess if we just literally finish these two missions first, not only would we now have unlocked this probably by now this thing to do, now we've got to wait till like almost the end of winter to continue this main story.
Yeah, we've got to wait a few weeks.
Yeah, so that's kind of thrown a little bit in. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, look, we still have other scenarios to do while waiting for that. So in a way, we are determining our own difficulty by going back and doing some of these snow imp scenarios and get some complexity in there. And as you know, we've got the bookshelf to set sail, and
yeah, we haven't even
done that yet.
Haven't done that yet. I'm pumped.
Well, I mean, that's probably next week, right?
Oh, it's probably got to be. I think that's the most interesting thing we've got to do because there's either that or go kill robots, and I don't think that.
Yes.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form interested in retiring anytime soon. So it probably is to go kill some crabs on our bookshelf. But speaking of retiring, I know that you wanted to go into a little bit more detail.
I will. Just going to quickly do battle goals and some DPS for the end of scenario 18.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
That's all right.
How did we go?
Battle goals. I have a feeling. Mine was kill an elite, and if we had 4 people, I had to kill 2. I think I remember saying, "Can I kill one of those?" Early on, and you're very kind enough to let me do that. And you had kill an enemy before it takes its turn, which you did in about half a second.
Yeah, that was the one. That's why I needed that to land so badly, was that I needed to jump in there, pull that guy through the traps and win. And that's why I was so excited when it worked, because I think I might have mentioned this in like the first or second episode. I love the battle goals that I can just do and then just put aside and not have to worry about anymore.
Set
right?
and forget.
Yeah. So and I remember that I had really, really tricky ones, because out of the 3 I picked up, one which is 2 ticks, kill an enemy before it has its turn. Another one which was don't kill any enemies.
Was that worth 2 ticks?
Yeah, it's worth 2
nice.
ticks. Yeah. And I've had it before and I tried it. And that's the one that I tried to. We have a soundbite of me, expressing my displeasure about how it's gone. And the other one was to kill no enemies, and I'm like, that I can't do that, because that's going to be...
The person that picks that is just going to get torched, right?
I think there's scenarios where you can do it, and situations. I feel you definitely need to be playing with 4 people, and you just manage it in a way where you're dealing damage but not dealing killing blows. But it's one of those ones that it's going to get to a point in a hard scenario where you're going to have to just go, nah, I have to just toss this because we need to win.
Definitely.
And I could just see it happening. Like, I'd see it happening, going like, can you kill that? And like, I mean, I can, but I don't really want to. And they're like, we really need you to kill that thing. But I really want 2 ticks.
It sounds like there is a squishy range support class that might get away with getting that one.
Maybe. Yeah, that's it. And then I don't know what my other one was. I think it was something equally as unachievable. Although I think I chose it, and then I was looking at the scenario when we were setting up, and I was just like, no, there's a couple of traps here and a dude. I reckon I've got this.
Surprise, surprise
yeah.
from you. Phil had something about a condition onto a condition. I know he didn't make it.
Oh, he had to apply a condition to a monster that already had a condition.
Yeah, okay. He was trying to do that with his Bane, I think.
Well, he realized after he had used his Bane that he could have Baned something that had poison on it. I think it was. Yeah. Figure it out.
So DPS meters for scenario 18 have proven to, again, keep the surprises going because, look, let me just read them out. The Deathwalker, damage-wise, did 44, and 12 of which was mitigated. Remember, we had a lot of shields, so for effective damage of 32. The Geminate pulled off 56 damage total. 15 of that was traps, and 12 of that was retaliate. I mean, it's crazy, right? So 56 total. And the Drifter had 48 minus 5. The Deathwalker came last. We've never seen this before. Now, Phil was very quick to say, oh, you guys were killing everything. I couldn't kill everything in time. And, you know, he needs not this turn. The problem was there was no next turn. Because everything was dying. And
we had setup time through the first couple of rooms, but then we got to the last room. It was like everything needs to die right now. Yeah. Like there's no more turns. So, and I think he's got it written down there, but for what round everything happens is. But I reckon a good chunk of his damage that he's got there would have been done in those last 2 turns as well.
His last turn was 12 minus 3.
Yeah, so that's it, right? Like that's a quarter of the damage that he did.
Yeah.
And he did it in 1 turn.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the ability of the Deathwalker to just go with a little bit of setup, like a turn of setup. I can absolutely pump. And he's now got a couple of cool combos where he can throw out his shadows, he can make them do a whole bunch of damage, and then he can suck them all up and do a bunch of damage again. So he can actually now utilize having lots of shadows without eating them. Whereas I think really early on, he had to throw them up and then he had to consume them to do big hits. Yeah. He's actually got a little bit of utility out of it. So in a sustained room, right, where he can get his shadows out, if there's lots of stuff in there, he can pump those numbers because he's just attacking so much with such a good deck.
Yeah, there are 2 things I can think of off the top of my head. This is one of the scenarios where there was no creature or objective or anything that needed to die ASAP. There was a little bit of, we'd take care of this or just take the focus off or whatever. So he probably lacked a little bit of that direction in knowing what needed to die ASAP. So the other thing is he actually tried out his new pet. He just got a new level 6 pet, which would have used shadows to actually get out. And that thing was stuck in the previous room and like it slowly made its way in. I don't really think it did much. So he kind of sacrificed some of the decisions he would normally make to try a couple of different things. So I got your back, Phil. We all have terrible times sometimes. And, get good. So
I love though that his terrible DPS is like what we average, right? Yes. Like, you only got 44, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you did reasonably well on 48 and I did quite well on like 50 something.
Yes, and we're really proud of that.
Yeah, we're really proud. Yeah, that's it.
So damage taken, Phil took 11. You took 10 minus 3, so you blocked 3, and that would have been during your shield round or something like that. And I took 11 minus 1 as well. So it was very, very even. I actually mentioned halfway through the first room when I was taking damage, and it was kind of like, I took 2, I took 2, I took 3. Like, and I was just like, this is really different to the last scenario. Like, it was just worlds apart different. I just didn't really care that I was getting hit. And yeah, we had our healing as well. Deathwalker healed 5, which is his average. Geminate with 16. I have no idea how. But
healing?
Yeah.
I can heal.
Yeah, I know.
I've got good heals.
Oh, I'm not doubting that. It says right here that you're a good heal.
The voice then when you said I don't know how.
I just felt slightly surprised. And I had 27. So that is our DPS meters.
Just on that, before we move forward, you're just talking about the damage taken there, and I think interestingly enough, with this combination of monsters, there really wasn't anything that was a big hitter. So when we fought the priests and the guards, which was the previous scenario, both of them had the chances of hitting hard. It was usually the guards hitting hard and the priests were, they were attacking for 2 or 3, but with a +1 that can hurt you, but they were more messing us up with the status effects. The thing I found with these Yetis is they usually attack for like 1s and 2s, but they're brittle. Right?
Yeah.
Their big thing is like making ice and brittling and immobilizing. And look, we've had some run-ins with them, like the room that we all got immobilized in. There was the room where they were transforming into those shriek fiends. So I almost feel like they're kind of like a support tanky character, like monster. And the problem was, when the Beyblades appeared, we actually cleared the room where they were mostly in pretty quickly, which helped. But when we were fighting the Beyblade things, they were also like a skirmishy type, put wound on everybody, do a little bits of damage, and there just wasn't a big hitter.
Yeah, the monster.
We didn't.
You're right. You're 100% right. The monster types were a little bit questionable. We didn't have the scary one.
I almost feel like in that second room, they just needed something bigger, like even just one big tanky thing that was going to hit hard, or a couple of extra mobs, which maybe that does happen in four players, but I doubt it's a different monster type.
Yeah. No, you're right. We've had a lot of those experiences where there's always been that one that we're a little bit afraid of, and it's kind of like, oh, well, don't worry, I'll go and let it punch me in the face while we pick off the supports and deal with the objectives kind of thing. But yeah, there really wasn't any of that this time. So, I mean, those Beyblades can technically, they've got I think 1 or 2 cards where they do the 4 to 6, but yeah, most times they're just spinning. No, they're not.
And the thing with attack 1s and 2s is that, there's equal chance that they draw a negative and then it ends up being no damage.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? So you can have these turns where you get attacked and take nothing. And I mean, I know it all balances out in the end. But that's just what I noticed. There was a lot of whittling. And I don't think that really was that effective because we weren't getting hit by that many things because we were pretty efficient in killing them. So, yeah.
Yeah. We go back to Frosthaven to do our outpost phase. And like Gaz was saying a little bit before, we get to do our event. We mark the box off as we normally do, and we draw our outpost event. Now, I'm just going to jump into a second round of spoiler announcement territory because I want to have a little discussion about personal quests. And I'm actually going to go into mine, okay? Personal quest number 6. So I'm going to throw another post-production dirty here just to let everyone know when to come back if they want to, or you can listen. But I want to discuss this because I've been talking about retiring for a while and it isn't happening. So post-production dirty here. Please skip forward just under 5 minutes if you don't want to hear about personal quest number 6. Personal quest number 6 is called team building. Now, there are people out there who would have done this. I think it's a fairly important one to have someone have at some stage. And I remember at the very beginning, because we didn't know what the personal quests kind of meant, a lot of them. The ones collect gold or the one collects herbs or all that kind of stuff. They make sense. But mine literally just says, during 8 different outpost phases, read a person's name in an event or section. And I was like, I have no idea what that means. And the other one I picked, the other one that I had a choice with, now I can't even remember what it was, but it also sounded really confusing. So I picked this one because I was like, look, if I don't know what it is, then I can choose whether or not I want to work towards it. Well, now that I understand what it was doing, I can't work towards it. And I still didn't quite get it after the first couple of outpost phases because those outpost events that we were getting didn't have named individuals. It has to be either in the event or in a section that you read during that whole outpost phase. You read one name and I mark one off. So when I have it 8 times, I'm on 7. And the most recent time that we did this, we banged out 3 section events and built multiple buildings, and we built a boat, and we did all of that. And every time we do any of that, you have to read a section event. And none of them had a name tied to them until we built the boat, which was the last thing we did. And it gave me the 7th one. Right? It was so funny because we'd gone and done something else regarding a sled or some other thing that we needed, and there was some harrower carpenter who didn't tell his name, right? And he was just like, I'm just a dude.
Generic harrower carpenter, then generic harrower shipbuilder.
And every time we are listening to Fortella read these events out, we're looking at each other, waiting for the name drop. And there isn't one. And we're always like, oh, phew, because Gaz knows my quest. So right towards the end of building the boat, randomly the last paragraph or whatever, Captain Doghogger or whatever his name is, makes an appearance. And it just sounded so made up. And that was the minute I was like, oh no. So I'm at 7, right? I'm at 7. So each outpost phase that comes around, whenever that outpost comes up, Gaz and I are looking at each other and we're just waiting for the name drop. Yep. And for the last couple of weeks, it hasn't happened.
Yeah, and it's just so nerve-wracking because it'll tell the story and, it'll be like you're standing outside in the cold and the thud of boots approaches and you turn and you see. And so it's going to tell you a person.
And we're like, what?
And it's like, generic guard.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you see just a regular lieutenant guard who does not have a name, and if he did, it would be like, don't tell us your name.
No, I don't care. I don't want to introduce myself. Yeah, or the fisherman walks up to you, and you're like, oh, okay, or you go to the smith, and there's just these constant
bait and switches.
Titles. Yeah, it's just their occupation.
Yes,
everyone's been told their occupation,
or their faction, or their race, or something. But not their name. And then randomly you get Captain Doghogger of all things as a name that just hits you right at the end. Yeah. So
yeah, we're kind of on edge every time we have to go back to Frosthaven.
That's why I'm like, based on the quantity of how many, events are on the deck, I'm kind of, on average expecting one every now and then. Now I've gone through 2 without getting one, and we play again on Monday. So that's why I'm like, I might be picking a new class, my character and all that. We're opening our first envelope. We may not. Based on RNG, think that this could be a while. And I looked into this because I was wondering what other people thought about this personal quest. And it's completely up to RNG. There's nothing you can work towards, right? It's RNG. So some people, based on the cards, retired by scenario 9. Right? They retired, whoever had this card, retired by scenario 9. Now, I'm thinking that this is a card that they want someone to have because it's going to be one of those forced retirements, so that it must be tied to an important envelope.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's going to help us move along. Whereas some of the others, like yours and Phil, are a little bit more optional.
Oh, so hurry up and retire. Don't be selfish.
I don't know how. No one's telling me their name. I don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah, well, ours definitely are way more controllable. Mine is like heaps controllable and Phil's is impossible. So
yeah. So just gonna wrap up our little spoiler bit right there. So I did not retire. I signed another 1-week contract extension. I've decided to go again.
Yeah, we did enough to keep him on the roster for another week. So we'll see how he performs, and we'll decide after that.
Yeah, performing all right. What I have been doing is dumping a lot of my materials into Frosthaven and just take everything. I don't know what's going to happen. Do you remember what our outpost event was?
Definitely. I wouldn't ever forget an outpost event like this.
Yep, just letting you ride that one.
Yeah. So... do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it wasn't the most eventful, but it was like a dude basically saying, hey, come over here. There's something on the walls and blah, 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 blah. Investigate this. And
oh, yeah. Okay, I remember that one. And Phil was quite happy with his decision.
Yeah. And
he talked us into taking a certain outcome that I was a bit I don't know about this, but he was just really certain. And I think Daddy said it, and this is kind of how we go with our decisions, because our groups all tend to be, the group tends to be very indecisive about what we do, so no one really wants to commit. So if somebody's super passionate about one of the options, right, you're like, yeah, sure, well, let's go with it. The last one that Phil was super passionate about, it was really bad. It was really selfish, and we clearly did the wrong thing. So I was bringing that up to him. I'm like, last time you were really passionate about this, you screwed us. So I don't know how this is going to go. But, to his credit, he was correct.
Yes. Yeah. But at the end, it was still kind of especially after the one we had earlier.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of glad because I was a bit worried that it was going to be a fight every single
Okay,
time.
that's 100% true. Like, now that I think about it, the fact that we didn't get an attack allows us to stockpile a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
And
I
prep a
mean,
little bit more.
because if it's going to be a fight every single time, I mean, winter's going to it's just going to drag. Like, it's going to be really bad. Makes the outpost phase take a bit longer as well.
Mm,
So I think every other time should be fine.
mm. Is there anything else you want to add to episode 17, guys?
No. I'm looking forward to sailing the bookshelf next week.
Mm.
Hopefully,
Are we
if that's
doing
what
it?
we're going to do. Well, I mean, I don't know. We'll have a look at the map, but we may as well. I don't know if there's anything
That
else
means we get
that's
to do
really.
a water event.
Oh yeah, that's it. We get to do our first water road event.
There you go.
So yeah, that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
And but yeah, no. Other than that, I think it was just it was a good experience, and yeah, had fun. Got to do some cool stuff.
Yeah. I think yeah, I might retire. Right? I'm gonna talk in code now. I might retire, but I'm definitely retiring in a couple of weeks. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've still got 2 or 3.
Yeah. So if
Yeah. So
yeah, there's a
yeah. So you have to. And I guess we might have talked about this, commented on about a landslide of people coming through recommending like the snowflake, and also a couple of people explaining a little bit about the trap icon and how Daddy should only choose it if we want to troll him.
I don't know if you actually want to hear that. Do you really want a summary of the week where it's kind of like, all right, damage meters. I did 8, and most of it was to myself.
Yeah, it'll be like Daddy couldn't figure out how to figure out where his cards were.
Didn't know where crushing weight was. I don't even know. I just assume it's got traps.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, well, I mean, I assume so. So, but yeah, so it sounds like a puzzle. I mean, I've been thinking about it. I don't know if
you're the puzzle guy.
No, but I'm a puzzle guy at the moment. That doesn't mean I want more puzzles.
Do you want something a little bit easier?
I want something more like a drifter, right? Like just point and shoot.
Go range drifty boy.
Range drifty boy, yeah.
No, I'd be curious on the blink blade actually. I'd be actually curious about that. I think that looks like fun.
Phil said if he retires, that's out of what's available at the moment. That's what he would take.
I can see that.
Yeah, because it's a high damage. I can't do anything.
I can't do anything next turn. Yeah, it's very him.
Yeah, and then he'll go invisible.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think the banner spear is probably just again, I don't know anything about any classes because I don't read anything. But just hearing the names of them, I think that's probably the one that I'd go for.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, out of what we've got, yeah. I mean, no. I mean, saying that, I probably choose the trap, right?
You 100% will choose the trap. Like the whole idea of a challenge and a puzzle and all that kind of stuff just calls to you.
Yeah,
I think 2 rounds of Banosphere and you'll be like, I made the wrong choice.
Well, I can just shelve it, right, and then just pick up the trap.
Oh, I don't know. I think once you pick it, you just kind of have to do it.
No, that's not how it works. But I will. Yeah, look, I'm again, depending on where we go, still a while away. So I think, are we level 6 or 7?
6.
6, yeah. So look, in a couple of levels, but I feel like once you get to like level 8, there's no reason not to go to 9 because the 9 should be the big one, right?
Yeah,
like
you're almost there.
Yeah, so I feel like I'll just hold off.
You kind of want to hit 9 and then get a chance to use the card.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't want to hit 9, get all this cool stuff, and be like, oh, now I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what's the point? Because I mean, I can just look at the cards.
Oh, then there's enhancing, you know.
Oh, no, let's not go down that path. But look, in saying that, mine is to kill. I've got to kill another crab, and I've got to kill some robots. So I reckon we're going to go on our boat, which is to Crabland. So I think that'll get that part done. I'm just going to avoid all the robot missions because I don't want to have to go back to do a mission. Like, you know, I don't know what the robot quest chain looks like. So yeah, it's I
think it does branch out quite a bit based on the stickers, like on the thing, the spirey thing. So you may not have a choice. We may run out of things until, you know, the next main one opens up.
Yeah, that's true. We might. I just don't want to be at a point where I'm like, I don't know where to find more of this mob to retire.
I don't know if you'll get to that stage.
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for us. This episode. If you want to contact us regarding anything at all, and look, a long time ago I said you can email me through and just say Gaz sucks, and that's fine. I'd reply to it. I'd love to hear it. I'd read it out. No one has, so I'm actually kind of proud.
So thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for not succumbing to Daddy's bullying, okay, and emailing that. I appreciate if you did the opposite and tell him that that's not the case, and you support me. Hashtag Gaz doesn't suck.
Okay. If that trends, then yeah, I'll quit. So yes, if you do want to contact us, You can email us at contact@rollingterribly.com. We also have an Instagram at am_dirt and Twitter at umdirt. I've been Deddy, been joined once again by Gaz.
And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the wrist. Yeah, now these guys are attacking for 6. They're gonna I think I just stole all of his myths.
Well, oh.
Yeah.
All right, he's gonna hit number 1.
Go, Orbie! Oh, come on. Oh, no, because it's got shields.
That's fine. That's 2 damage. So he actually did damage.
Yeah, he did 2 damage.
Wow.
Go, Orbie.
All right. No, that's 4, right? Yeah.
Yep. Big work on me.
Alright, Orbie.
He's fucking just comes in, new adventure, and goes, so like this? He's been watching him, not me.
Yeah.
He's like, why do you need crushing weight for? I don't understand.
Yeah, so-
Trust me, it makes it better.
Are the purple cards good?
Tiny hits with ice.
Oh no, they're brittling, aren't they?
Mm.
And he'll go 1, 2, 3, but he won't. Oh, he'll just hit Phil.
Yeah, he'll hit Phil. It's fine.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can only... The only thing I can do is hit him for 2, or hit him for 1 and muddle him. Which will muddle you. Yeah, it's just...
Because head's blocking the door.
Yeah, it is, because kid's blocking the door. 94!
Wow.
What are you going at 90?
Wow.
What are you going at 94 when you're doing
We
nothing?
need to open the door, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to go really...
Are they go
fucking
invisible or go slow?
Yeah, 1 loop, please.
But we can't see what's blocking the door.
I can't get through for some dumb reason.